Hello, you guys, and welcome to the first ever episode of the By Him For Him podcast. Now, if you have listened to the Purpose and Freedom podcast and you just happen to open Spotify and see, oh, I don't remember subscribing to this By Him For Him podcast. What is this? I did rebrand it. It was previously called the Purpose and Freedom podcast, which I had, I think, in my first episode of that podcast, which, by the way, this is the same podcast. I just changed the name, changed the cover art, and it's like 2 years later, a year and a half later. So things have changed a little bit. And I wanted to change the name because I feel like this one has a more significant meaning than the Purpose and Freedom. Now, don't get me wrong. I love that name. I had a reason for it, which, like I said, it is in like my first episode. But this one I feel like is more applicable to everyone's life, to the Christian walk, and just kind of like the things that will be, I guess just the things that we're going to be talking about in this podcast. So I figured I would change it. I'm so excited. Like, I am actually so excited. Like I said, it's been about a year and a half since I've posted a podcast, which I am a little ashamed to say. But if you're here, thank you so much for clicking on this episode and listening. I hope you guys enjoy it. And I appreciate your loyalty with coming back after this long break, or what was supposed to be a break, and ended up it was a break. It was just a very long break. You probably don't remember. You probably even forgot this podcast existed. And what was supposed to be a break was because I was going to be gone all summer. That wasn't even this past summer. That was the summer before. So that was summer of 2023. And so I had podcasted. I started podcasting from February of 2023 till like May of 2023. So we had a few months there. And then I made this whole end of season 1 Q&A podcast explaining what was going on and like, okay, I'm going to be gone, but I'm going to come back in the fall. Didn't happen. That wasn't my last episode that I posted. The last episode I posted was with my VBS team, because that year, summer of 2023, I spent going around teaching VBS, and that's actually what I did this past summer too, because it was just so great I had to come back. And so with my team, my VBS team of that year, I had a different team that year than I had this past summer. But we're all like, hey, wouldn't it be fun if we made a podcast? And so we did, and it was great. You should listen to it. It was so fun and so funny. And we shared like all the things that we learned that summer, a lot of funny stories, but that was the last episode. And so now we're back. And yeah, a lot has happened since then. I'll probably throw in some of that as we go, but this episode, or this whole podcast, isn't about me. It's about the Lord. It's about Christianity. It's about health and fitness. It's about faith. It's about advice. It's about a lot of things. And so I'm going to touch on that real quick, about the name of this podcast, where that came from, kind of what that means, and then I have some other stuff I want to share, which relates to New Year's, because Lord willing, this episode, okay, I remember when I started the podcast, I posted episodes every Monday, which I like because it's kind of like new week, reset, refresh kind of concept, So I would like to do that again, so hopefully this episode will be up on Monday, if I can remember how to do all that kind of technical stuff. I think the platform I used to make these podcasts has changed a little bit, so we'll see if I can get that figured out. But Monday, hopefully this will be up. So then New Year's Eve, I think, is Tuesday, which is crazy. I cannot believe that. So the topic of this is just kind of motivation, goals, how do you make it work? We're going to be talking about all sorts of that stuff, and I'm really excited for that. But before we get into the topic, I want to share with you guys the name and the inspiration of where that came from. And so, obviously, it's called the By Him For Him podcast, and if you haven't put together, it's because we are created by Him being God, obviously, and so we should live our lives for Him, which I feel like is kind of a cool name. It's not as random sounding as Purpose and Freedom, but I wanted to do this because I have a lot of things that are important to me, and over this past summer, something that kind of became more important to me was fitness and health, which I've been working out. I've been in the gym for like 2 years off and on. When I first started working out, I got a membership with my mom, and we went a couple times a week, but I didn't really eat my protein, so there was like nothing to show for it. And then we canceled that membership because I don't remember why. I think we canceled it at the end of the school year because we were going to be gone. And then we got another one to a gym that was just by us, and we were working out there a little bit. But then I had to stop because I was going to be gone again because I was going to be in Wisconsin away from home. And so that's when I kind of started running, which is something that I love now. My boss, Deb, if you're listening, Deb, I love you. But she kind of got me into it. And so I ran my first ever half marathon with her, and that was a blast. I'll probably do a podcast on like running, how to start, tips, all that kind of stuff later on. But anyway, and she's also a little crunchy. And so I was like, whoa, I was introduced to that whole world. And I therefore became slightly crunchy. So that's kind of how I got into health and fitness, and that's kind of what I want to talk about on this whole podcast. That's not all I want to talk about because I am a Christian, and that is the most important thing to me. So we're going to be talking about all sorts of stuff. Advice. I'm going to have guests on here. My family and friends are great. They have a lot of great stuff to say. And even just like conversations I have with them, I'm like, man, I wish I could just record this so that I could share it with people. It's so awesome. So I can't wait to have some guests on here. And you want to know the funny thing though? Is that I haven't recorded an episode in a year and a half, or something like that, at least a year and a half, if not more. And ever since then, consistently, people have come up to me and been like, oh, what about your podcast? Have you been recording that? Which, if they were actually listening to my podcast, they wouldn't be asking me that, but they know about it and they ask about it, and I find that really sweet. My volleyball coach, my mom told him that I had a podcast, not this past volleyball season was this fall, but the one before that, so fall of 2023. And he remembered that, and he remembered it all the way till this season too. And so at the award ceremony, he was like, yeah, he said this in front of everyone. Yeah, Grace has a podcast. Are you still doing that podcast? And I just kind of told him, I'm like, I mean, I still have it, but I haven't been really doing it, and I want to get back into it. So I just think that's really sweet that all these people remember and ask about it. All my friends and family literally told everybody they knew that I have this. And so I'll just meet people and they'll be like, oh, your parents told me you have a podcast. And I'm just kind of embarrassed because I don't post on it anymore, which we're going to change now because it is going to be a new year and it's going to be full of lots of podcasts. Although we are going to be out of town in January, the beginning, like half of January, almost half of January. And so this episode will be if it goes up on Monday, we're leaving on Tuesday. So we're leaving on Tuesday for Colorado for family vacation. And so the following Monday, we will be gone. And this lovely mic that I have, that I borrowed from our library, I can't take with me. And so I'll either have to not do an episode that Monday or record it in advance. But if I record it in advance, then I'll have to stay up and do another episode right after this one. So we'll see. If there's an episode that goes up the following week after this one, then you'll know that I stayed up all night working on it. But okay, I'm getting sidetracked. That has not changed. If you remember my episodes from the Purpose and Freedom podcast, you will remember that I was the queen of being sidetracked. But as I was saying about the name and being created by God, living our lives for Him, that's something that I truly believe we can implement into all aspects of our life. I started talking about the health and fitness aspect. I think that we can live our lives for Christ while being into that kind of stuff, while working out, while running, while fueling our bodies well. I think that that's something that we can do to honor the Lord. But that's not the only thing. Obviously, we have this whole Christian life that's like, okay, we have our life, then we have our Christian life. And I think for a lot of us, those can become two separate things. But I truly believe that's something that being a Christian spreads to all aspects of your life, not just the other section where you go to church and you go to youth group and then you read your Bible in the morning and you pray before your meals, and that's the extent of your Christian faith. I truly believe that can be, merged with your other life, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So yeah, we're going to be talking about how to live our lives for Him in within health and fitness, within relationships, within hobbies, within everything that we do. And yeah, that's where the name of this podcast came from. And I actually have a Bible passage to read that kind of relates to this. And it's the parable of the talents, if you're familiar with that one. But it's in Matthew 25, starts in verse 14, it goes through verse 30. So I'm going to read that real quick. And even if you know the parable that I'm talking about, it's always a good reminder. It's always a good reminder. I've read this parable so many times, and every time I'm like, yes, I need to do that. I need to focus on stewarding what God has given me. Well, so I'm going to read this real quick. So it says, "For it will be like a man going on a journey, who called his servants and entrusted to them his property. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 2 to another, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. He who had received the 5 talents went at once and traded with them, and he made 5 talents more. So also he who had the 2 talents made 2 talents more. But he who had received the 1 talent went and dug in the ground and hid his master's money. Now, after a long time, the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. And he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying, 'Master, you delivered to me 5 talents. Here I have made you 5 talents more.' His master said to him, 'Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over little, I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master.' And he also who had the 2 talents came forward, saying, 'Master, you delivered to me 2 talents. Here I have made 2 talents more.' His master said to him, 'Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over little, I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master.' He also, who had received the 1 talent, came forward, saying, 'Master, I know you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours.' But his master answered him, 'You wicked and slothful servant, you knew that I reap what I have not sown, and I gather where I have no seed. Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming I should have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to him who has 10 talents. For to everyone who has will more be given, and he will have in abundance. But for the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the worthless servant into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." Okay. If you've never heard that before, you're like, whoa. So basically in Matthew, Jesus loves to speak in parables. That's a series that we're actually going through in our youth group right now, and we went through that one. It was really good. And he loves to speak in parables because it's easy to apply to our lives and to understand. And it's also interesting. It's like, whoa, and it kind of puts into perspective what it's like. So obviously, if we're contrasting that to our lives and to the real world, the talents that the master gave his servants, actually, I think that's kind of funny. I didn't even realize this before. The talents he gave his servants are equivalent to the talents he gave us. Except for the only difference is that in the Bible, the talents that the master gave his servants was money. It was another word for money, but what God has given us is talents, like our abilities, our skills. And here's the thing, you might not even think you have anything to invest, if you will, I guess, or invest, or steward for the kingdom of God, but every single person has something. And if you don't, you can create something. This podcast. That's what I felt called to do, is start a podcast because, well, first of all, I love to yap. Second of all, I love to yap about God. And third of all, I love to share what he's put on my heart. So you can do something like this. You can invite people over. Can be Christians, can be unchristians, neighbors, family members, friends, whoever God lays in your heart. You can use your talents to give God glory. Everything you have is a blessing from God that he's given you to steward for his kingdom. And one day when he comes back, I want to hear the words, "Well done, good and faithful servant." And I don't want to hear the words, "Depart from me, I never knew you." And I don't want to hear what the master told his one servant who had not invested the talent they gave him. I don't want to be cast away because I did nothing with what God gave me. I want to use everything he's given me for his glory. And so that's the little Bible lesson of today, I guess. But also, that's really the purpose behind the name of this podcast, By Him, For Him. We can live our lives for Him because He's given us so much that we can use for Him. And honestly, even just stewarding it well, you might be like, okay, well, how does, I don't know, investing money have to do with our walk with the Lord? But He's given you money. You can use it for so many things to honor God with. And so I want you to like really pause and reflect and think, what can I do? What can I use for the glory of God that I have? Because I guarantee you, you do have plenty of opportunities to steward what God has given you well. So I thought that passage really applied to the name and applied to the podcast, and hopefully that's something that we can keep as a center theme / focus throughout this whole podcast. But now I want to talk about the topic of this episode, which is New Year's goals. Obviously, New Year's is upon us. It is coming up very quickly, and by the time that this episode's posted, it'll be the day before New Year's Eve, which is crazy. I don't know about you guys, but I have not really even started to think about New Year's. Actually, that is a lie. I have started to think about it, but it hasn't registered, if that makes sense. I only started to think about it because I knew that it wouldn't feel like New Year's, and so I knew I just had to start thinking of goals, start thinking of what I wanted to change and implement into my life in 2025. Because if I didn't force myself to do it, then I would probably wake up on New Year's Eve and be like, oh my goodness, where did this whole year go? What am I going to do? I haven't put any thought into this. So I'm going to share with you guys my thoughts on goals and motivation, how to build your plan for 2025, how to make this year the best year yet, and actually put into practice your goals and not give up on them. So yeah, I'm really excited. So I don't even know where to start. Another thing I want to say about this podcast, what's kind of going to be different, obviously we rebranded it, changed the name, added new cover art. I'm older, like 2 years older, so I'm actually legal now because I just turned 18, so that's exciting. But also, we don't have a script this time. We do not have a script. And I'm just going to expose myself real quick and tell y'all that when I was doing the Purpose and Freedom podcast, I would spend hours typing out my notes, except for they weren't really notes. They were practically a script because I was so afraid of just going, improvising, I guess. And so now this is the extent of my notes. I have like, okay, talk about this, talk about this, talk about this. And I don't have it typed out word for word what I'm going to say. So excuse me if I kind of ramble a little bit or lose my train of thought, but that's kind of how things are going. And hopefully it'll be a little bit more real this time. It's very real this time because I'm sitting on my floor. I'm glad you can't see my floor though because it is a mess. And yeah, no notes, no makeup. We're just being real over here. So that is that. Anyways, so about New Year's goals. I guess I'll just start off by sharing kind of my plan, and I hope that you guys are inspired because I'm kind of excited about what I'm doing this New Year's. So a lot of people have their goals. They say, okay, I'm going to do this every day. I'm going to do this 5 times a week, or I'm going to do this, and I want to have this done by the end of the year, right? That's like kind of how New Year's goals work. I've done a few in the past. I guess my biggest New Year's goal was that I had this big poster board, and I was determined that I was going to write at least one thing I was thankful for down on that poster board every single day. I actually have it behind my bed, and it's pretty cool because I can look back on it and realize, wow, there's actually so much to be grateful for. It's just filled with all these things, and it's super cool because some of them are like literally sunshine. I'm thankful for rain. And like the most basic things, but some of them are specific to that day, something that happened to me, and I can look back on that and remember God's goodness and His faithfulness in providing for me in that certain time. And so it's just a really cool concept. Maybe you could use that as your New Year's goal. That's one that I did a previous year. Other than that, I think this past year, I just said I was going to be more consistent in the gym. Another thing that I've done as a New Year's goal is I remember, okay, fun fact about me, I've always been a very shy, quiet person. which is actually kind of ironic considering how much I like to yap, which is the whole reason I have this podcast. But when it comes to like being in a group of people, I'm not the most chatty person. I just kind of shut down. Now, one-on-one is a different story because I always end up feeling bad because I do talk too much when I'm one-on-one with people. But in a group, I'm always like pretty quiet, and which is why every time I joined like a new group or something, I would always look really shy. And so people have been so nice to me as a shy person, growing up as a shy person. Now, I don't like to think I'm very shy right now. I have grown up, obviously, so kind of grown out of that a little bit. But when I was so shy and quiet and afraid of talking to people, especially in new places, that's when I kind of realized how much it means to have people reach out to you and just be kind, you know? And that's kind of like a universal thing that everyone knows. Oh, be kind. That's what we should do as humans, is be kind. And actually I have this story, and I will never forget it. There's this girl, and so the first year of my school, going to my school, I've been going there for like 6 years now, which feels crazy because I don't know why. I think I'll always just feel like the new kid because everyone else who goes there has been going there for years. But this was 6 years ago, so I was 12, and I was in science class. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm sharing this. This is embarrassing. But it also maybe can be inspiring. I don't know. But I was in science class, and this girl, okay, there was a group of girls and there was a group of guys, and like for some reason in my head, I thought that that group of girls was like the cool girls, and I didn't see myself as a cool girl, so I was like, oh, I'll just sit over here at this table by myself. So I did. Every single week, I sat at this table by myself. Oh, that poor girl. I feel so bad for her now, even though it's myself. And one week, this girl, she came over to me and she's like, can I sit here? And I was like, yeah. And I was just kind of shocked because she was like the leader of the cool girls, you know? And so she sat with me. It was just me and her. And then the next week, she was like, you can sit with us, you know? Like, come sit with us next week. I was like, okay. And so the next week I was like, oh, but that's so awkward. Like, if I come and sit, like the rest of the group doesn't know that she invited me. So they'll just think that I'm inviting myself. That's so embarrassing. So I sat by my little table by myself again. Then she like looked over at me and she motioned. She's like, come sit over here. So I did. And that has stuck with me to this day because I actually felt so seen by that girl. And so even though I'm not like the shy girl anymore, I will never forget that. And I actually still know this girl to this day, which is kind of fun. But yeah, that was the short story long, I guess. That's a saying that I'm going to start using because that's the story of my life, is making short stories, long stories. But that's the short story long of the New Year's resolution I've had for the past few years. Another New Year's resolution I've had, oh my gosh, there's a dead spider right here. I'll have to get that after this is over. Okay. Other New Year's resolutions I've had were to just be like more consistent in the Bible, grow my relationship with Christ, have a stronger walk with him, that kind of thing. So those are just kind of like the main goals. Be kinder, be more consistent, so like be kinder to new people, and grow relationships with the friends I already have, be more consistent in the gym, and be more consistent with reading my Bible and all that stuff. So those are like the main goals that I've had in the past. And then other than that one, or those three, I guess, the only other one I've really had was the gratitude board. So okay, I'm finally getting around to this. I have been keeping you guys on like the edge of your seats, I'm sure, because I'm sure you're so invested in this whole thing that I'm talking about right now, about what I'm doing this year, because I said it was very new and exciting, which hopefully it will be. But this is my plan, okay? I color-coded it and everything. So basically, I'll read you the rules that I wrote. So I have this kind of like the thing that explains how all this is going to work. So I wrote down a bunch of little goals that I'm going to set for myself. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 16 of these, right? So there's more than 12. Because some of them I am going to do 2 of each month, and some of them I'm just going to do like 1 of each month. But basically, out of this list, I'm going to choose 1 or 2 or 3 goals to do per month. And then when that month is over, I don't have to do those goals anymore. which I think will help so much because I get bored so easily. I get bored really easily, which is not good. I do not have a very good attention span, and I'm not that great at being consistent. But if it's just for a month, then I only have to be consistent with it for 30 days, right? 31 days. And so some of my goals are no caffeine, no sugar, daily cold showers, follow a workout plan, hit 10K steps a day, no Instagram, be in bed by 10, wake up by 6 or 7, read 3 full books, clean my room every day, 2 hours screen time max, which might be kind of hard. I might have to change that to 3. Help make someone's day better every day, follow a budget / no unnecessary spending, no makeup, meal plan, and 30 minutes of cardio a day. So those are my monthly goals. And so I made a list on my phone, which I'm recording on right now, so I can't show you, but I kind of wrote down the goals that I'm going to work on each month. So, for example, I think January, I know for a fact for January I have read 3 full books and take daily cold showers. And I figured I'd start out kind of easy. Some of these are easier, some of these are harder. Reading 3 books a day might be really easy for some of y'all, but I do not read. And I have a shelf full of books on my bookshelf right now that I've collected over the past 3 Christmases because I always ask for books and I can never get myself to read them. So this year I'm going to read all those books. And so yeah, in January I'm going to make myself read 3 full books and also take daily cold showers, which is something I actually already started doing. And so it shouldn't be too hard. It's actually feels amazing. I highly recommend. And then some of these are going to be a lot harder. So I think that be in bed by 10, wake up by 6, that is going to be really hard. But I'm going to make myself do it because I only need to be consistent for a month. So that's kind of my plan. And I'm also going to goal stack. So I'm going to stack habits. So I'm going to stack all these habits / goals each month. And I guess I'm going to kind of plan cheat days for the ones that I'm stacking, that I get in a month. So basically, I know for a fact that next December, I don't have any of these goals in that month. Why? Sorry, I just burped. If Aubrey's listening, Aubrey's my sister, she would be disgusted right now. She hates it when I do that, so I'm sorry if I just grossed you out. But back to what I was saying about the goals. Next December, I don't have any of these because the ones that I already did that year, obviously December's the last of the year, so I can look back on the year and be like, okay, this goal worked really well for me, I felt great doing it, and I want to implement that one this month, and maybe pick a few of them. But I'm gonna also goal stack throughout the year. So let's say, since January's read 3 full books and take daily cold showers, I don't remember what February is, but let's say that it's no caffeine and no makeup, which would be so hard during February because I feel like that's the peak of winter and that's when I'm going to feel so pale. I don't know. Another thing I did is I kind of chose the months that I felt like would work best with the goals. So for hitting 10K steps a day, that's going to be really hard to do during the winter. So I didn't choose like January to do that for. I chose, I think, July to do that for because I know that I'll be most likely to actually achieve it in January. Same thing with no makeup. I think I chose like August or something because that's when I'll be tan. That's when I usually don't wear makeup that much. So I kind of strategized with that a little bit with choosing the months. But yeah, I'm going to stack the goals from the previous months that I liked the most. I'm not going to stack them all every month so that by November I have like 16 goals that I have to keep on top of. That would be a lot. But I'm going to it'll help me weed out which ones work for me, which ones don't. And I'm excited about that because there's all these tiny little habits that aren't really that hard. Like some of these are hard, but overall they'll help you form a healthier lifestyle, healthier and better. And we'll see. Maybe some of them will suck. Maybe some of them will be great. And this is my way of finding out which ones will work best. And yeah, I did color code them. So I have fitness, wellness, and mental health. So for each of the goals, I colored it with whatever category it fits into. So for no Instagram, that fits into the mental health. For be in bed by 10, wake up by 6, that fits into wellness. And then for following a workout plan, that fits into fitness. So I color coded it. I have about equal amounts actually. So that's how I'm doing my monthly goals. And then I also have some yearly overall goals, which we'll see how those go because I don't know. I don't know. These are kind of big. Some of them are. So for the yearly overall goals, I have solo travel at least 3 times. I think I might change it to 2 times just because 3 times is a lot to solo travel by yourself. But I do love solo traveling, which I've not really done that much. I've done it a couple times, but just like being in the airport by yourself or driving to a different state by yourself and like, I don't know, setting up camp. Something about that seems so exciting to me. But also, I know that I would get lonely. Actually, I don't know if I would get lonely. I am simultaneously an introvert and an extrovert. I think an ambivert is what they call that, or an ambivert. I don't know how you pronounce it, but I know there's a name for it. I think I'm that because I could probably go a good amount of time without talking to people and seeing people and be fine. But I would also probably be a little lonely, but I might be really peaceful about it. Like, I could easily go a couple days without seeing people. So I don't feel like the solo travel would be too hard, but I don't want to do it too many times because I don't want to isolate myself, obviously. And also, I do have some really fun sisters that like to go places with me, and I like to go places with them, and I think, would I still count it as solo traveling if they came with? I don't know, because my family travels a lot, just between like visiting my grandparents and then going to our family farm and going on camping trips and vacations and all that stuff. We travel quite a bit. So, I don't know, maybe just some trips to visit some long distance friends I would consider solo traveling. Who knows? We'll figure it out. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. Another yearly overall goal is to do a muscle up. I don't know how achievable that is. Apparently, you have to be able to do like 10 to 15 pull-ups to do a muscle up. And I think it's 5 tricep dips. So like when you have those bars and you extend your arms and then you like dip your body weight, if that makes sense. Hopefully you guys know what I'm talking about. I don't know how much I'll be able to improve in that department over this next year. Right now I can only do 6 pull-ups, so I have a ways to go within that. But I think it would be so cool to be able to do a muscle up. So I'm going to try to get there. Another yearly overall goal is to do a press handstand. And that one I have a feeling will be even more hard than a muscle up because my coordination and balance sucks. So I can't even do a handstand, much less a press handstand. Maybe we'll change that one. We'll tweak it to say just do a handstand and like be able to hold it. That might be more achievable. But that's my other one. Then my last yearly overall goal is to do my Bible before phone 365 days a year. It's not even just like for 1 month. It's not even just for 6 months. It's not even just a few times out of the week. Every single day. That's a habit that I want to make. I don't want to wake up and then reach for my phone. I want to wake up and reach for my Bible. So that's something I'm going to try to do and like make myself do because I think that would be so beneficial for my faith and my mental well-being because I heard this thing probably on Instagram because that's where I hear most of my things. That's like my source of finding out what goes on in the world. But I heard that what you spend your time doing first thing in the morning is what you're going to want to do the rest of the day. So like, I guess if you spend the first thing you do in the morning is like waking up and scrolling on your phone, that's what you're going to want to do for the rest of the day. Or if you wake up and read your Bible, then you'll be filled with the Spirit and you'll want to keep on reading, which I know I have experienced both of those things and I can confirm, so that must be true. Anyways, that's kind of how my monthly goals are going to work. If you were watching the video podcast, then you can screenshot this. This is what mine is, but you might not be able to read it because my handwriting sucks. But if you want inspiration, there it is. You can screenshot. Anyway, that's my goals. That's how that's going to work, and I'm super excited for it, honestly. Another thing along with New Year's I want to talk about is how motivation kills your goals, because it's true. Motivation kills your goals. Because if you tell yourself, okay, I'm going to go to the gym as soon as I feel motivated, you're not going to go to the gym because motivation is not just going to come upon you, you know? I rarely feel motivated to go to the gym. Sometimes I do. Sometimes you will feel motivation, and that's great. We love motivation. We love just those random bursts of motivation. But you can't count on it. You can't rely on it. So, if you have a New Year's resolution or if you have a goal to do something every day, you can't wait till you're motivated because that will kill your goal. You're not going to end up doing it. You're not going to end up following through with it. And so that's why you have to rely on consistency. And honestly, that's something that works for me way better. And I'm sure every person is different with this, but for me, motivation is not going to get me out of bed in the morning. Consistency will. If I tell myself, okay, I'm going to wake up at 7 a.m. this month, or even just this week, then halfway through the week when I don't feel like getting out of bed at 7 a.m., I'll tell myself I've come this far. If I ruin it now, then that'll destroy my progress, Then what will be the point of those other days that I did this thing that I said I was going to do? And so consistency is great for that because it'll keep you wanting to come back. And even if you don't want to, you will, because you want to be consistent. You tell yourself you're going to do it no matter how you feel. You don't have to do it as good as you did it yesterday. I'm saying it. You could insert whatever your goal is. Let's say working out. And I really don't feel like working out. I feel really tired. I'm going to tell myself, all right, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to walk on the treadmill and see how I feel after that. Even if it wasn't as good of a workout as it was the day before, I still did it. And there's this quote, if you give 40% on a day when you only have 40%, you're still giving 100% because that's all you have to give. So don't let the fact that you don't feel capable of achieving your goal that day stop you from trying to do it anyways, because trying is better than not trying, I'd rather say that I tried and I did it, or even if it wasn't as well as I did the day before or I wanted to do it, it'll help you be consistent and it'll help you reach your goal. So that's that about motivation. So don't go into this next year worried that, oh, if I don't have motivation, then I can't do it. What if I don't feel motivated? What if, fill in the blank, right? Don't go into the year that way. Go into the year saying, I'm going to do this every single day, or I'm going to do this Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Be consistent. Write out a plan and follow through with it, because following a plan is really the only way you can achieve something, because if you just wing it, you're not going to achieve hardly anything. You're going to be lost and confused, and you're going to be going in circles, and you're going to forget why you started. And you got to follow a plan, whether it's a workout plan or a meal plan or a plan with waking up early or a plan with serving people or a plan with reading your Bible. Whatever it is, make a plan and write it out and put it somewhere where you can see it so that you can look at it and be reminded of why you started. That's another thing. Write down why you started, because there's going to be times when you forget why you started. You're going to wonder why you're doing what you're doing. And you've got to just come back to that main point, that reason why you're doing what you're doing. So, how to build a plan, kind of went over that already. Write out the days you're going to do something, the amount of times per year, per week, per month you're going to do something. And also, make achievable goals, okay? Some of my goals, I can't really say make achievable goals and judge you if you don't, because some of these seem pretty unachievable. The muscle up, the press handstand, the being in bed by 10, waking up at 6. I go to bed at midnight pretty much every single night, so that's going to be really hard. The 2 hours of screen time max per day, none of that stuff really seems achievable. But we're going to work our way up to that, see how we feel, maybe tweak it a little bit. Because if you tell yourself, I have to do this big thing, this big goal that you set for yourself, and then you get there and you're like, this is way too hard for me, I can't do it, I might as well just give up. You're going to give up, right? So you got to start small, make a goal that you know you can do, that you know you can be consistent with, and that will ultimately help you stay consistent, that will help you achieve it, because, yeah, like I said, looking at a big thing in front of you and like, okay, I'm trying to figure out how to make this into an analogy because I live through analogies, that's how I understand things best. Okay, if there's like a big rock in front of you, huge rock, huge heavy looking rock in front of you, and someone tells you to move it, you're gonna be like, heck no, I can't move that. You might try a little bit and then be like, it's not budging. That rock is not budging, I can't move it. And then you're just gonna walk away. But if there was a pile of rocks, a pile of little rocks in your way that was about the same size as that big rock, you could move those one at a time and eventually you'd get them out of the way, right? it's a lot less intimidating to have little steps that are achievable that you know you can do, because then it won't intimidate you. And I think that can be the same with goals. Set little goals and don't be ashamed of it, because we all start somewhere. And another thing I heard, probably on social media, or probably from another podcast, I think it was actually from another podcast, I love podcasts, was that a billionaire will never laugh at you for starting a business. An athlete will never laugh at you for starting to lift weights. Someone who's super smart will never laugh at you for studying. Like, someone who is an expert in their field will never make fun of you for something that you're doing when you're trying to start, because nobody who is greater than you will laugh at you. They will not look down on you. Okay, that's probably not true, but it's probably true for most things, if you know what I mean. I'm sure there's plenty of people who are arrogant and see themselves as better and will look down on you, but I'm not helping my point. My point is that those people, that billionaire had to start from starting that small business. That athlete had to start, that Olympic athlete, once upon a time, had their first time walking into the gym, had their first time on the court. And my point is that we just all start somewhere. So don't be afraid of what other people think of you, or whether or not they'll look down on you or laugh at you for starting. Because if they do, that is a reflection of them, not of you. Because how are you supposed to achieve greatness if you can't even start? Like, you have to. That's not something you can avoid. So yeah, start small, start wherever you need to start. Start at where you have to start. And don't compare yourself to others. I want to make another episode about comparison, because there is a lot to say about it. I actually might have had an episode in the past about comparison when I did the Purpose and Freedom podcast, but I'm sure that I have more information on that now after all these years of listening to podcasts, because now I have a lot more wisdom on that from all of those podcast episodes that I've listened to. So I do want to make another episode about that, but just to touch on it real quickly, you can't compare yourself to anybody. And honestly, I used to say only compare yourself to yourself, but honestly, you can't even compare yourself to yourself. Why? Because you are going to change every single day. Some days you're going to be feeling great. Some days you are going to be feeling rotten. And there's nothing really you can do about it. It depends on, I don't know, like, okay, I just got over a cold. You can probably tell by my voice. This whole past week, I've been really sick and struggling to move, and even just getting back in the gym after I've been feeling better, I've been feeling not as strong as I usually have. And so I can't compare myself to myself 2 weeks ago, because I've changed since then. I was literally sick and my body fought off a whole cold, right? So I can't compare myself to myself. That's not fair. Don't beat yourself up if you're not as good as you were the day before. I think yourself is the best person you can compare yourself to, though, because you are yourself, as long as you understand that your body's going to change and it's not your fault if you're feeling sore or weak the next day and you don't perform as well, you know? But you can't compare yourself to anybody else's walk with the Lord, anybody else's walk in life, because every single person has a different past, which affects how they're going to walk their current walk, right? And so your own walk, your own step in front of you is the only thing you need to focus on, especially to go into 2025. Let that be a mindset that keeps circling back around, because that is an important thing to remember and to realize. And if you are comparing yourself to someone that you think is better than you, or someone that's a little bit farther ahead in their journey than you are, you're just going to beat yourself up. And that's not going to get you anywhere. And that's not going to help you. And it's not going to help them. It doesn't help anyone. So I feel like comparison is one of those things that we all know, oh, it's a bad thing, right? But it is a thing that we need to constantly remind ourselves of if we want to succeed. So that's that. And hopefully I can talk more about that in an episode in the future. I have 2 more things I want to talk about on my notes, if I don't get sidetracked, which is not likely to happen. It's not likely for me not to get sidetracked, is what I mean. But The other thing I want to say about goals and your resolutions for this next year and just in life in general is to have accountability. That is huge. That is so important whenever you have anything that you want to try to do, whether it's a sin that you're struggling with or a goal that you decided you want to start on, or I don't know, something you want to work towards. To have accountability is one of the best things, because then you have that person checking in on you and saying, how are you doing with this? What can I do to help? Where are you at in achieving this, right? Whereas if I was just on my own, I would likely give up. I would honestly, okay, with all these goals that I just told you guys about, now that I told you about them, I have to do them, right? Because you guys are going to be like, oh, you said you do that, right? I can't just say, oh, I gave up on that. Then you'd be like, come on, you can't motivate me if you're not even achieving what you said you were going to do. Once you have someone that you tell that you're going to do something to, they can hold you accountable and you're not going to want to quit. And even if you do, they can encourage you to start again. They can encourage you to pick it back up and not give up. And they can also, just check back in with you, especially when it comes to sins and struggles. That is a huge thing, to have accountability, because that is where Satan thrives, in the darkness. If you have a sin or struggle that it's just hanging over your head and you can't seem to get free from, it's because Satan leaves this shame hanging over you when you keep the sin in the dark. But when you bring it to the light, even if it's just sharing your struggle with one other person, God is able to move and you are able to find freedom from that. So that's where accountability really comes into play and is super important. And I highly encourage you guys to try that for anything that you want to overcome or start or give a try at. Find a friend, maybe volunteer to hold them accountable too. So it's kind of like goes both ways, and have them check back in with you. Maybe meet up for coffee once a week and talk about it. Whatever that might look like, find accountability, because that will ultimately keep you from quitting. I guess that's the best way to put it. So accountability is key. And my last point is that it's never too late to start again. Never too late. Not much to say about that. It's quite simple, quite self-explanatory. But let's say you mess up, you stop being consistent, you forget about your goal, or you give up a little bit, and then you lose heart. And you're like, what's the point? Because I've stopped, and I might as well just not even start again. But honestly, starting back up again is the hardest part. And so that's what makes you the strongest. So once you prove to yourself that you can pick it back up again, that it's never too late to start again, then you'll build this self-trust system with yourself. And I am a huge fan of self-trust systems. I want to make another episode about that too. Okay, fun fact, over the past year and a half that I have not been posting, I have been adding podcast episode topics to my list. I have a note on my phone of all these podcast topics that I want to talk about. Every time something just pops in my head, I'm like, oh, I should write that down on my list. And I do. And so I probably have over 50 maybe topics. So we have options for a while, and this is one of them. So there's that. And I lost my train of thought of what I was saying before that. Self-trust systems. So that's the thing that I wanted to make a podcast episode about in the future. My point is that with all of this, every time you achieve something good, you achieve your goal, you're going to prove to yourself that you are capable of doing what you said you were going to do. And that's going to make you trust yourself. Now, why is trusting yourself so important? Because this is something that I've noticed. Here's an example real quick. When I am on a streak of waking up early, it becomes so much easier. Why? Because I tell myself I'm going to do it and I'm going to do it. But if I tell myself I'm not going to do it, then I know I'm not going to be able to do it, even if I'm capable of it. Or not even necessarily if I tell myself I'm not going to be able to do it, but if I tell myself I can't do it. So let's see here. I'm trying to think of a good example for that. But with waking up early, that's something that is a really good example, because when you first wake up, or when I first wake up, I am hardly conscious. And so I'll wake up to my alarm, and without even really waking up, I'll just turn it off. And then my mom would come and wake me up like an hour later, let's say. And I was like, I don't even remember my alarm because I literally turned it off in my sleep. Why? Because I told myself I couldn't wake up because I had a bad self-trust system with waking up, if that makes any sense. Hopefully, if I cannot talk. If I unpack this in a future episode, that'll make more sense, but hopefully it makes sort of sense. But that's a huge thing. It's just to learn to trust yourself because the words you speak over yourself hold so much power. You wouldn't even believe it. Like literally, it is the difference between you failing and you succeeding is the words you speak over yourself because that becomes reality. And that is a fact. That is actually, I think, a science-based fact. So you cannot argue with me. Be careful what you speak over yourself because it can lead you to success or it can lead you to failure. And I think that's a good way to close out this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed the first episode back, or I guess really just the first episode because this is a new podcast. It's kind of a new podcast. You can still listen back to my old episodes. You might not want to. I honestly am scared to listen back to them because I have no idea what I said in those. I was young and unhinged, and I'm still unhinged, but I'm not as young, and I don't know what I really said. So yeah, feel free to, though, if you want to. They're still up for now, unless I listen back and decide to take them down. But thank you guys for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed this so much. I miss podcasting every single second. And for your information, every single week that I did not post a podcast episode, I was telling myself, I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it next week. I'm going to do it next week. I'm going to do it next week. Because there was not a moment that I wanted to just quit podcasting because I love it. And if you guys love it too, then that's a win because this is somewhere where I can just come and I feel like I'm talking to myself, but I know there's people on the other end. And hopefully you find encouragement and some of this advice can help you, hopefully. I just had a voice crack. Anyway, I should probably stop yapping and end this episode. But thank you guys. Genuinely, thank you so much. And I hope you stick around for this new journey of the By Him For Him podcast. And yeah, that was the first episode. And Happy New Year, because maybe by the time you'll be listening to this, it will already be New Year. I hope you guys had a wonderful Christmas. And with that, thank you for listening, and I'll see you all next time.